Howdy, friend. Spitz here, and this is Feed Bandit, the Texas First Outdoors podcast. If you have ever been driving down a dusty farm-to-market road in the middle of our state, looking out past the old cedar posts and rusty barbed wire fence lines, you have probably seen some wildlife that made you stop your truck and rub your eyes. Right alongside our native white-tailed deer, standing out in the middle of a blazing, hot, rocky pasture, you might see a herd of animals that look like they belong on a completely different continent. You will notice a proud leader with a coat that is dark black on top and bright white on the bottom, sporting a pair of long, heavy horns that twist perfectly straight up into the air like corkscrews. I am talking about the Blackbuck antelope. Today, these beautiful creatures are a permanent, thriving part of our wide-open spaces. But they didn't start out here. They didn't walk across the border from Mexico, and they didn't migrate down from the northern plains. They traveled across entire oceans to get to the Republic. Today, we are going to dive deep into the fascinating history of the Blackbuck antelope introduction to Texas ranches. We will talk about where these spiral-horned speedsters came from, how a few pioneering ranchers changed the face of Texas game management back in the 1930s, and the exact biological reasons why these exotic plains animals found a perfect paradise in our rocky limestone hills. So, pull up a chair. We have a lot of history to cover. To understand the story of the Blackbuck in Texas, you have to travel back in time nearly a century ago to an era when the face of Texas ranching was going through a massive transition. In the late 1920s and early 1930s, many historic cattle ranches were struggling to survive the economic hardships of the Great Depression and severe multi-year droughts that turned pastures into dust. Landowners needed a brand new way to make their family properties profitable so they wouldn't have to sell off their heritage dirt to concrete developers. At the exact same time, a few visionary land managers on legendary properties, like the massive Schreiner family's Y.O. Ranch near Mountain Home, Texas, decided to try a grand experiment. They looked across the world to the open, sunny plains of India, where the native blackbuck antelope had roamed for thousands of years. The ranchers realized that the climate of India was incredibly similar to the climate of the Texas Hill Country in South Texas. Both places featured hot, dry summers, rocky limestone soil, wide-open grasslands, and thick, thorny brush where animals could hide from winter winds. In 1932, the very first small group of blackbuck antelope was released onto the pastures of the Y.O. Ranch. Nobody knew if these exotic critters would survive the winter or if they would succumb to native predators like coyotes and bobcats. But the blackbuck didn't just survive. They exploded in numbers, proving that the independent spirit of Texas was a perfect match for the fastest antelope of the Old World. Let's look at the technical tips, land management strategies, and biological facts that explain how these animals successfully adapted to our rangelands. My first big tip for you is to understand the exact habitat preferences of the blackbuck versus our native white-tailed deer. Whitetails are browsers, which means they prefer to eat the leaves of oak trees, twigs, and woody brush inside the thick timber breaks. But blackbucks are strict grazers. They are built to eat short native grasses, weeds, and forbs out in the wide-open flats. This means that when ranchers introduced blackbucks, the exotic antelope did not compete with the native deer for food. They filled a completely empty niche in the pasture ecology. If you manage a piece of property for blackbuck today, you must maintain large, open prairies and open grass meadows. Do not let the cedar or mesquite brush choke out your fields, because a blackbuck will completely avoid thick, dark forests where they cannot see the horizon. My second tip is to understand their incredible defense mechanisms, which are built entirely on raw speed and world-class eyesight. In their native home of India, blackbucks had to dodge super-fast predators like cheetahs and leopards. To survive, they develop the ability to run at speeds up to 50 miles per hour for miles at a time. They also have eyes that work like high-powered binoculars, allowing them to spot a single human or a coyote moving over half a mile away across the flat ground. Because of this, you cannot hunt or track a blackbuck by walking blindly across a field. You must use the natural curves of the land, dry creek beds and rocky ridges to hide your body as you perform a slow-motion, careful spot and stalk approach. My third tip is to learn how to identify and map out the dominant male's breeding territory, which biologists call a lek. When a mature blackbuck buck wants to find a mate, he does not wander aimlessly through the brush. He chooses a specific flat patch of dirt out in the middle of an open field and claims it as his personal property. He will stomp the grass down to bare soil, leave his scent on the small weeds, and spend his entire day pacing back and forth inside that small circle, challenging any other buck that walks near his boundary. If you are scouting a pasture and find an area of scraped earth with a single dark buck standing proud and alert, you have located a live lek. Instead of chasing the herd across the open flats, set up a comfortable ground blind on the downwind edge of that open meadow and wait patiently. The buck's biological clock will always force him to return to that exact piece of dirt to defend his kingdom, giving you the perfect opportunity for a clean, ethical harvest. My fourth tip is to prepare for their vulnerability to extreme wet winter freezes. Because blackbucks evolved in a warm tropical climate, they do not grow a thick, insulating undercoat of fur like our native mule deer or whitetails do. When a historic Texas ice storm hits the state, dropping temperatures below freezing for several days with wet sleet or snow, blackbucks can easily suffer from hypothermia and die in large numbers. To protect your herd, always ensure your pastures feature deep, south-facing rocky draws or low brush thickets where the animals can get out of the freezing north wind, and supplement their feed with high-energy alfalfa and corn pellets to help them maintain their internal body heat through the darkest winter nights. The history of the blackbuck antelope introduction is a premier part of our outdoor tradition because it represents the pure ingenuity, independence, and stewardship of the Texas landowner. When our ancestors faced hard times, they didn't look for a handout. They looked for a creative way to partner with nature and build a brand new wildlife economy that has made Texas world famous for its exotic hunting opportunities. Preserving this tradition means treating these beautiful Indian antelopes with the exact same high standard of fair chase, sportsmanship, and respect that we give to any native game animal. We manage our rangelands, protect our soils, and follow the ethical rules of the woods because we want our pastures to remain wild and full of life for our grandchildren. Protecting the legacy means passing down these deep historical lessons and scouting skills to the young generation, showing our kids that being a true Texian means taking responsibility for every creature under our care, whether it belongs to the old frontier or traveled across the sea to find a home under our big sky. Blackbuck venison is celebrated around the world as some of the finest, cleanest, and most delicious wild meat you can ever put on a family table, featuring a sweet, mild flavor that is completely free of fat. Bringing home a harvest and sharing that clean bounty with your loved ones is a true honor that celebrates the rich, diverse history of our outdoor paradise. Appreciate the history of your land and keep the outdoor traditions of the Republic burning bright. So, what do you think of that? Are we right on target, or did we totally miss the boat on that one? Email us at howdy@feedbandit.com and let us know either way. And don't forget to check us out at feedbandit.com and grab some gear to show off your Texas First Outdoors pride. Preserve the tradition, protect the legacy, and remember, always support your local feed store. If you're there for them, they'll be there for you when you need them the most out in the field. Stand tall, fellow Texian. We'll talk soon.